Okay, so this is a scene that I've based fairly loosely on the reference photo here attached. And notice here, it's pretty simple. You've got a lot of mountains in the background. You've got a few trees that are darker here and there, some reflections in the water, little boats in the background, maybe, branches and things sticking out of the lake. And then you've got all these different colored boats over here with the reflections. So having a look at the sketch really didn't take me too long to pencil this all in. The main thing you just have to be careful with is the boats. So especially the one in the front, you have to spend a little bit more time drawing that one in, as it's going to be closer and more noticeable to the viewer. But for the rest of them, I've just gotten in the basic shape, and we can suss them out as we go through the painting. So the first thing I'm going to do is pick up some cerulean blue, and that's going to be for the sky. Also trying to keep this painting fairly quick and spontaneous. I don't want to spend too much time on it, so we'll see how long this is going to take, but I really don't think I'll go over an hour, hopefully a lot less. So dropping that in there, that's just some cerulean blue. And this is going to be the lightest part of the painting. So just getting in a flat wash, starting from the top. And you've got some trees coming down the side here for the mountains, which I'm just cutting around very loosely and just carrying this wash down into the foreground. Sorry, into the bottom of the background, and it sort of finishes around there, and then I'm going to just get this last bit in here. Okay. All right. So I'm really going to leave that as it is. I'm happy with how the sky looks at the moment. There are things you can do, like lift out a little bit of paint if you're feeling like creating some lighter clouds like that. So that's something you can do just while the paper is still damp, and you'll barely even be able to notice it later when the paper's dried. But that's just another technique that you can go ahead and do. Just breaks up the sky a little bit. Okay, so moving in basically now to some of these boats, I want to get in the lighter colors on the boats. So firstly, I'm going to be picking up a tiny bit of carmine for this boat down the bottom, and I'm going to go and just get it in like that. Not too much fussing around, just a light wash of carmine, and maybe too light, but I can still glaze over the top later if I feel that it just needs to be strengthened a bit more. Okay, great. And we've basically got a shadow that's being cast from the right to the left, as you can see with these trees there. So there's some tree shadows or something even just coming over on this jetty here. Always have to check where your light source is early on when you're drawing. So there we go. Got that carmine in, and you can do things like maybe add in a bit of darker color in there as well, but let's leave that for now. And we'll go and get in some orange for this boat in front. Really doesn't matter what color, just use a warmer color. And I'm actually going to go into the shadow underneath and glaze over the top afterwards to darken it down. But really with the other areas of the boat here in the front, just cut around that bit of white. That's going to help. Okay, and then we've got the back of the boat as well, which I'm just going to get in like that. Okay, and just maybe the back of that shadow, which is really darker, but for the sake of it, I'll just go over like that. And inside the boat as well, there are some areas of warmth especially here. So I'm just going to get that in, and later we can get more details in of the boat, but we'll stick with that. I'm going to pick up a round brush now and a bit of red. Let's make this one behind red. And I'm going to carry that across here. Leave a bit of that white on the paper. It's really a little too dark, so I'm going to go over it and just lift off some paint. And if it starts blending in with the other boat, that's not a big deal as well. So we're going to go and just get a little bit of this inside of the boat like that. There. Okay. What else have we got? Really, we're just putting colors on the page. You know, a bit of blue for this one. Just a light wash of blue here. There. And that kind of goes all the way across like that. And some more warmth maybe in this one here. A lot of these shapes we're going to cut around once we go and do the water later, so you want them to be fairly light, and even the ones in the background there, I'm just going to get them in with a cool color and leave some of them white at the back, just with a light little glaze like this. That's all you need. Cool it down here as well. Near to the front. Got a couple of the boats at the back. I'm going to get some of this yellow ochre and just get a light wash in like that. That's all you need. There we go. I think that will contrast with the water quite well. And with the white here of this boat, I'm going to pick up a little bit of this grey from the palette, just a tiny bit, and just get in some colour here. I don't want it to be completely white, so I'll get that in. And also on parts of the boat here as well, just on the sides. I'm not going to get rid of all the white, just a bit of it. Quite loosely. Leave some little specks in where you can, just to imply maybe some sunlight hitting area of the boat. That. And do the same maybe over here, just some light brush strokes in the mix. Okay, so that's looking quite all right. This area of the mountains has started to dry, and what I'm going to do first is actually get in a little bit of yellow ochre in this mix, and use yellow ochre, Naples yellow, just a normal yellow, and just adding some to these trees here. And what's going to happen later, I'm going to mix in some sap green to everything, and that's just going to help dull it down a lot more. But I think having a bit of transition or some different colors running through here, there could be rocks as well. Go imply some rocks just running across there, just going to make it look a bit more interesting. So picking up some of this sap green now, and start off here and move kind of into this area very lightly. And I'm not just going to stick with this color, I'm going to pick up other colors as well, maybe a bit of this this brown or this red. I'm not sure what it is, because it's going to keep it looking interesting. I don't want it to be that same green the entire time, but you know, keep in mind this is going to be done in multiple layers as well. So just going around this area here, you know, also seeing as this area is still kind of wet, I'm going to go into it and get a bit of that green in there. But the yellow is going to help just imply some little bit of sunlight going across. Like that. Put in a bit of blue here, like that. More sap green, and we'll mark out the tops of the trees as well. Like that. Just so that it hits the sky in this kind of fashion, like this. You're not taking too much time there trying to do it, but just a little bit is fine. And go all the way across to this side now. And again, let's just a bit more green in there. Let that sort of settle in. And we'll do the same across this side. And I'm going to add some more yellow into this mix, bit of yellow ochre, maybe a bit of burnt sienna as well. You know, keeping it interesting, but predominantly having greens that are running through it. And you know, this area of the trees as well, just some highlights there that I get in with some of this yellow. And that's all I'm going to do. Grab more of this green and let's get that in like that. There. Moving down the page, let's add some blues like that. You can still do it on this side too. Bit of dry brush like that. You think that air of the sky here, where it touches the sky, needs to be a little bit darker too. So I'm just going to add a few strokes in there. Let that green kind of settle in a bit more, and you can indicate some darker trees and things like that. For example, here, maybe a bit on the shore there. That. Okay, back to this side again, picking up that green, and I'm going to go darker here, using just some of this color that I've got left over on the palette to imply some trees and darker regions here. That. Some broken shapes. This as well, maybe repeat this kind of pattern over on this side too, with some here in the foreground, or the shore. I mean, here we can get it in a bit later anyway with a flat brush. Okay, so still going with this area and seeing what else we can do with it. Just getting a few little trees and things like that sticking out the top of the mountain. Some shapes here and there. Just implying a bit more detail, just smaller trees and things like that. Just picking up darker paint, add some of that in there while it's still wet, and let it do its thing. You know, it might be a good time to swap over to a smaller round brush like I'm doing here now. This is going to make it easier for you to put in some of these tree shapes as well. And some more bits and pieces in there, really. It's quite dark down the bottom here as well. So I want to make sure that's kind of reflecting properly. So we'll darken that up using a mix of Prussian blue and some brown here. Just darken this area. Apply some trees and that kind of thing. And if it goes all the way up to here, some darker regions in this section as well. Notice how I'm not 100% looking at the shapes, I'm looking at mainly the color and then the shapes second. There we go. Bit of detail there. So look how this side's going. I think it needs some brush strokes, some dry brush strokes running through here. I'm just going to imply this tree shape running up like that. Some areas here, dry brush strokes through this mix. You've got smaller trees here too, especially in the far distance. So small shapes like this, just really minute shapes that might be interpreted as trees, just little trees. Right. Trying to get a lot of this done, wet onto wet. Okay, I'm going to leave that section for the time being and go straight into the water. Okay, so picking up some of this sap green, I'm just going to touch onto the paper like that, underneath the area of the trees here. Let's cut around these boats too, using the same flat brush, trying to be quite careful, do this little bit of cutting around. That here as well. There's actually a little shrub here, and I'm going to see if I can scratch out some highlights for it later on. But all I'm doing here is just a bit of cutting around work with these boats like that. And I do want to make it darker on this side. It should have done that before, but mixing some blue into here like that. And that's going to create more of a contrast on these boats, which are actually this color in the photograph anyway. It's quite dark around the boats. So let's go in like that, cut around. Now it's kind of looks a bit more interesting. We've got a kind of a fade from this green, lighter sort of sap green down to this darker color. And we'll cut around these ones. Let's get this over and done with. And where does this end up? Sort of around here, like that. There. And more sap green in here quickly, and let's pick up some blue, darken it down here. Just trying to just simplify these reflections more. I might try to add in some tree shapes in here too, but let's just give this one a go first. And almost done. Let's mix a bit of blue in here. Tiny bit of blue into this mix, like that. Okay. And what I'll do is pick up a bit of yellow, just drop some of that in here too, like that. Some separations kind of in there. Okay, for the bottom bit, I'm going to be picking up some cerulean blue, but it's going to be kind of a grayed down cerulean blue, drawing this reflection onto it in one go like that. Come on. Yep. Okay. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go over this reflection in the water like that. Let's get that in. Okay. More of this blue. Join that on, wet onto wet, so that it just transitions a little bit better. Don't know how this is going to turn out this side because I think I've added a bit too much water, but keep it fairly light. It's going to need to be darker than the sky, but not darker than this area here. So maybe a little bit of this other blue will help. That's a cobalt blue. So a bit of cutting around. Now for this boat here, going down into the foreground. Okay. See this little shadow underneath the boat still has a pinkish reflection. Let me just quickly get in something in there. Just a warmer color like that. We'll do a bit of blending as well. And I might actually just darken slightly down the front. This. Just a little bit. Okay, great. And go through here. Let's just get this all in. I hope I have enough time now to do some brush strokes running across the water, picking up some Prussian blue and a little bit of sepia mixed together. I'm just going to drop some of this in here, just to create some ripples on the water like this. Gentle ripples, nothing too obvious, but having some darker and larger ones near the front really helps to aid in creating that sense of depth in your painting. Go through and try a few strokes here, maybe here, somewhere around here. The back area is dried, so you just have to be a bit more careful, and brush strokes now smaller and just faster near the back. There we go. smaller little bits here and there. As you come down the front, just make the waves a bit bigger. Okay. It's looking all right. What I'm going to do is just get in a bit of yellow ochre for this area as well of the jetty. Just like that. Okay. And I'm going to wait for this area to dry a little bit first, and while that's happening I'm going to detail just some of these trees a bit more because I feel that some of them need to be darker. We don't have too many dark values except for in that area, so I'm mixing myself up a kind of greyish blue with just a bit of sepia blue, bit of red in there as well to warm it up. Really just a dark colour is going to do it. Okay, let's try that. Yep. So just adding some loose shapes of some trees, who knows. This is going to help keep things interesting. There is a shrub here which I've forgotten to indicate. And going up to the side of the mountains like that. It's really all this layering that gives watercolor a finished look, and a lot of the time, you know, when I started out painting, I didn't have the patience to continue on, or I'd just give up earlier. But it's so important to remember to get in just these other little bits and pieces, because when they're all together, the painting comes together quite nicely. The trick is you don't want to completely obliterate some of these lovely areas here, these lighter areas. You want to have a combination of both. Let's get some other darker shapes here. Notice the brush I'm using as well, the round brush, makes this a lot easier. Some around here too, there's some darker areas. That just indications, more so on the right hand side. But I feel like I need to balance it out a little bit on this side. Yeah. Get in some darker trees in there. There's really a lot going on. So simplification and making it easier for yourself as well. You know, using the side of the brush, and that's going to indicate a tree, but trying to keep those brush strokes varied too. It doesn't all look the same. Let's have a look how it's going. Maybe a little bit more. It's really up to you how much details you want to include. even little reflections and things in the water, and I'm not going to bother too much with those for this one here. The way I'm going to just get in some of these smaller trees at the back here and get in an impression of this little reflection on the water, the distance. Just things like that. But you can, for example, re-wet a section and go back into it, or you can just dry brush some areas like this. Just being very careful because I don't want to get rid of this nice wash that's already there. So, simple indication like that I'm happy with. Okay, bit of detailing in the boats now. Getting a dark just mixed up here in the palette. And let's try to do a little bit of defining. It's really just the areas in between the boats where there's darker areas of water and things like that, shadows. So I'm gonna go ahead and indicate that. The boats as well, just some indications. The ones that are a little bit closer that you've got to pay more attention to. Just trying to mimic these reflections that are in the reference photo, like that. Okay. And moving down to this boat here, getting in a little bit of this darkness and outlining some areas of the boat. So this back portion, I just need to darken that a little. Then you've got this shadow here, directly underneath there, that, and really this pink area just needs to be dulled down a little bit. So I'm adding some water into this mix. That, let it do its thing. It's just a teeny bit of this blue added in there. Maybe some darkness here on this side as well that needs to be indicated. That. And here the jetty as well. underneath it's a lot darker, and just picking up this paint, need some more this brown in there, and I'm just going to get that dark part in, cut around the boat. Finishes about here. I'm not going to do much else to it, and a little bit of detailing here as well on the jetty end. Follow the directions of some of the planks, so that one comes in like that, and you've got the rest that go in on this kind of angle like that. There. I don't want to spend too much time on that, just indications. That's all. Okay. Thinking what else I need to add to this boat. I think a bit more darkness over on this side here. And maybe here as well. Just a little teeny bit. There. Get it to stick out a bit more. There's really some shadows being cast. And this back part of the boat, a little bit darker. Like that. Okay. The insides of the boat I will darken with some a bit of red mixed in with the blue now, purplish colour. So some areas inside like that. I want to mainly imply it, don't want to spend too much time fiddling around, just to keep the style quite loose as usual. There we go. Another bit here that's darker. Good. More darkness on the back. Okay. Strengthen this shadow more. Reflection. A few birds flying around. So maybe the mountains here. Just going to add a little reflection underneath these boats in the distance. And maybe some sticks and things coming out from the ground, maybe like something like that. Things in the water. Okay, and I want to add in some sharper waves coming through as well. So you're just picking up the brown here, mixing it in with the blue, get some nice darks. And I'm going to start off around here. And there's actually a reflection I've forgotten to get under this boat. It touches onto here. So I'll build that into this. There we go. Darker reflections. Remember to make the brush strokes larger down the bottom. As you move to the back, we're going to decrease the strength as well as make them smaller, less obvious. There's already some in there anyway. And they help also to define the areas of the boats too. You can use them like this, create more contrast. Like that. Over here as well, more brown. Okay, I'm just going to add some finishing touches to this one. And I feel that this boat, these areas here just need to be darkened a little bit, so I'm going to grab a bit of this darker blue here of the palette and just darken some of the inside areas of the boat a bit more. Just like that, and also the back of it here. kind of imagining a light source coming in from the right hand side, so I do think it just needs a bit of darkening there. Nothing too much. But you know, I'm not too worried about that. What I'm going to do is also indicate some little shadows, areas of the trees maybe coming off like that. Near the bases. Really won't touch to this area much, but that's something that you can do. So even just a little bit of darkness at the base of some of these trees can help. Okay, now I'm going to pick up a pretty dark color, so I'm mixing up Prussian blue with some sepia, and the mix is pretty strong. I know people were asking for me to explain the mixes a bit more. So these are full tones. You're almost getting a cream-like consistency with the colors. It needs to be as dark as these trees up the front, even this bit of water here. So pretty dark. And what I'm going to do is just get some branches, some tree branches cutting across maybe here, some coming into that side as well. So I'm just mixing up enough because I don't want to have to remix it again. And just be able to do it in one go. And I find adding some trees in the foreground helps to give that painting that extra sense of depth. So I'm going to go in from this. Let's have a look. Let's go in from this angle first. I don't want to disturb this boat too much, but at the same time, you know, I think it just needs something cutting across. So let's give this a try, see how we go. So a bit of a branch coming in like that, coming up there, and now these are just spreading out that. Let's get another one coming in this side like that, there, and just going up into the sky. And notice that I'm doing this pretty quickly as well. I want to keep this loose feeling of the painting, but paying a bit more attention to the little branches at the top, like that. Having a look and just seeing from a distance as well if that's effective or not. I think it needs more darkness. So just going to add another one, maybe coming up just vertically here, like that. And noticing it's not, you know, you're not ignoring all these boats here, you're just having a shape go across. I think maybe one coming up here like that, and we'll just get some in on the left hand side as well, like that. Bit of a branch there, and another one maybe coming up just vertically. Go. Keeping things quite random. The branches. Let's have some going over to the left hand side. It's going to balance it out a bit more. And, you know, little parts of it are dry brush too. See here. So that's just going to give some variations to the brush strokes. Keep things looking more interesting. So yeah, another one coming in from this side, like that. Okay. So I'm almost done. maybe a bit coming in like that. And I'll call that finished. Check out these tutorials down the side here. I've got a couple of playlists that will help you get some ideas and improve your watercolors.